Welcome back to the a la carte sports betting channel. My name is Matthew, aka Mattman, and this is the sister channel to the Parlay Kitchen, which will be hosted by me and JR. Um, welcome to the channel. We're gonna do a quick recap of the college football championship game. So that was between Washington and Michigan. Um, and I did choose Michigan as the lean, and then I also put I believe it was $30 bet on them to win, um, because the money line I actually not the money line, I got the spread at 2.5 with a bonus bet that brought down the odds from like minus 160 to minus 120, and I thought that was a lot better than paying minus 160 for the appropriate spread bet at that time. It was an all around good game. I think Washington underperformed, unfortunately, for those Washington fans, and just for the game in general, since it did start to get away from them towards the end. Michigan, I believe I was looking at the video and I said that like their running back was average. I said he's broken some records, but I still didn't think he was all that. He definitely proved me wrong that he's definitely the guy because I believe he had more yards alone than Washington did, and he had more than his quarterback. So he was definitely the guy, and it was a mixture between both of their running backs. So good for Michigan, good for the game. All in all, we made some money on that night. The only thing I was really bummed out about was the over 55, as it only got to, I believe, like 42 or 43, somewhere in there. And that's just where Michigan didn't, or Washington didn't carry uh, their amount of the load that needed to be hitting that score. So that part sucked. So out of the $40 that we won from Michigan minus the 20, we won like $20. But hey, like nothing to be upset about because that's still profit coming our way. And that's the whole point of this is just to continuously grow the account, whether that be big or small. Wins are wins. So that would be the recap for college football. Moving on to the NFL, as we are now entering the playoffs. Um, there's a lot of good games that are happening for the wild card this upcoming Sunday. One of my favorite bets as of now is going to be the Steelers versus the Buffalo Bills. The reason why I'm choosing one of this as my favorite bets is going to be because they're giving the Steelers, as of right now, 10 points. And I think that's too many for how defensively sound they are as a team. Offensively, we'll see how many points they can get up. But to give them 10 points, I think, is a very hard or large order for the Bills to cover that, considering how they have not looked like the team they were last year. And because of that, I think that's too many points. You know, they may win the game, but I think it's going to either be by a touchdown or a field goal. And then even if they do get the 10-point lead with a touchdown and field goal, your bet will be voided, so you won't lose any money if it hits 10 points by their victory, if that's the case. And so I really like that bet. Um, some other good bets that I think are just appropriate is going to be the Lions versus the LA Rams. The Lions currently are a -3, and I think that's about right. That's kind of what I would have given them too in this game. But I do think they're going to be the better team all around. Just how they performed all year versus how the Rams have kind of gone on a heater towards the end of the year. And I was looking over some of their last games, and they were very close. And the Rams did pull off the victory, which got them into this position. But I didn't see like any dominance. And there have been a few games with the Lions where they have really come out and made a precedence that they're going to be the team that wants to win. And so the -3 I think is a little bit too low for this game. I personally would have put them around like 5 to 6.5 if that's where the starting line would have been for them to have to cover. But since they're giving us just a 3-line spread, I think that's a great bet also. And both the Steelers and the Lions, as of right now, for their game on Sunday, I have $25 on each game with their current spreads. What other games are there? I'd say those are like the two highlighted games that I have for betting aspect of the wild card. And then kind of forecasting the rest of the playoff here. I definitely see the Baltimore Ravens being a very tough team to deal with this playoff. They've just been all around a great team throughout the whole season, and Lamar Jackson is looking back to his prime days, and he is going to have a tough, uh, you know, potential outcome of teams to go through. I think the ones that are mainly going to be at the end of the AFC Championship are going to either be Kansas City or Buffalo. My brother mentioned the Browns, which I definitely could see as a big outlier. So I'm not counting them completely out, but they're definitely going to have to go through the Ravens in the second round if they make it there. And that's just where I think that's not going to happen. And so that's where it's either going to be, I think, the Miami Dolphins or the Buffalo Bills, just based on how they've played. And going off of those two teams, I would lean Miami because the Bills, once again, just haven't been what I think everyone thinks of them, or yeah, they've really kind of underperformed. So if they can have a heater in the playoffs, good for them. But with that being said, I would have the Baltimore Ravens winning the AFC, and then going to the NFC. I think the two teams that are going to be in contention are going to be San Francisco, and then I do want to lean the Lions to the path of the AFC Championship. Um, and then if it comes down to those two teams, San Francisco, I believe, has the all around better team, but the Lions have just had that big lion heart, right? And they've been just finding ways to win. And with their coaching this season and the past year or so, they've really gone from a 1-16 team or whatever it is, 1-15 team to now in the playoffs. And so the growth that they've had has been exponential. And I would actually like to see them go to the Super Bowl this year. So my prediction is going to be the Baltimore Ravens and the Lions. And going to that game, I would probably have to lean the Ravens just based on their performance of the year and who's more deserving at that point. I would probably give it to the Ravens. But my heart would want the Lions to win just based on the growth I've seen in that team. So, final prediction would be the Baltimore Ravens to win the 2023-2024 Super Bowl. So, that's going to cover our football basis for this podcast. And then we're going to forecast our UFC predictions for some upcoming fights. So we're going to skip this weekend's fights as I'm not too entertained and there's no like belts up for grabs. And so we're going to go to UFC 297. And the main event for that is going to be Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis. In this fight, I think both of these guys, first off, with their recent background of like getting in fights at other events and just talking mad trash to one another, there's definitely going to be some high tensions and I think a lot of pressure and stress for both of these men. And who's going to handle it better on that week? I don't know much about Dricus's personal life, but I just watched a podcast with Theo Vaughn and Sean Strickland, and he's just definitely been through a lot in his life. And so I don't think he's going to have too much pressure in the sense of what people normally deal with as pressure, because he's had so much more personal issues than just being on stage and being a show fighter. So I think he's not going to have the nerves, and Dricus will. But with that in mind, when I kind of looked over, because I did watch film on both of these guys, Sean Strickland just seems to be a shell fighter, like a turtle, just stays in his stance. He's not really doing too much different every fight that I watched over him. So if you are Dreykus's team, I would look at the same film that I did and be like, we got to try something different, um, to just kind of get him out of his comfort zone. And Alex Pereira just caught him with some power, and I don't think Dreykus has got that power, but I do think he has definitely knockout potential power. So I could see this fight going to Dreykus Duplessis, and I actually already have a bet on him. My goal is to get $50 on Dreykus or higher, um, just because the odds are he's the underdog, but I do think he's probably the better mixed martial artist in this matchup, and so I would have to put my money with the best mixed martial artist, which I think is going to be Dreykus. My issues with Dreykus are going to be that he's going to run out of cardio if they get past the third round, and we've never seen him in a fourth or fifth round, and we've seen Sean, and Sean looks, fresh. Because granted, the fight with Izzy, I don't think he really had a competitor up there. Izzy looked to be in a whole different zone and mindset versus the Izzy we know. So if Dreykus can get him out within the first 3 rounds, I think it's his fight. And if the fight somehow gets extended, I do think that Sean Strickland will probably have the overall more punches, more significant punches landed, and just all around look better to everyone visually, because I think he's going to have the gas tank. So my official pick is going to be on Dreykus by KO in the second or third round after he figures out that Sean Strickland's going to be doing the same shit all fight. So that would be a fight I'd like to target on this one. And what I would consider a good parlay piece is going to be this next fight, which is going to be Neil Magny versus Mike Malott, or Mike Mallet. And I like Mike Mallet in this fight because I see the UFC kind of building him up. He's a relatively new fighter to the UFC, and he has a 10-1 record. And all of these have been coming by stoppage in the UFC. So he's definitely got all around skills when it comes to either knockout or submission game. So he's a threat. And he's got like that, I'd say, like advertisable face, right? Like he's got the good looks, he's got the body, he's got the skills. So if I'm the UFC, I'm going to want to profit off of him. And so they give him an opponent like Neil Magny, which is pretty well rounded, but he's kind of a skillful man in many traits, but a master of none. And I think it's going to give Mike Mallet a chance to exploit him, just kind of like what's his name did, that young buck did. I'll think of it here in a second. But yeah, I think that's kind of a really good parlay piece would be Mike Mallet. His price tag's pretty overinflated already. It's minus 280. And Neil Magny's a plus 230. And if I was going to line this fight, I'd probably have Mike Mallet at minus 190 to like a Neil Magny plus 145, somewhere in there. And so I think the line's pretty far out. So if you're going to want to attack this, you're going to want to do it now. And that's why I'm putting this video out pretty early, so you can get that type of news. Because I do think Mike Mallet is, as what they would call in this world, a lock. Nothing's guaranteed, but he's about, one of those pieces that's as close as you're going to get to it. And then the next fight I want to talk about is going to be Arnold Allen versus Movsar Evil. It's Russian, guys. Give me a break. But Movsar is a beast. Like, he is no joke, just like most of these Russians are. And Arnold Allen just had a chance to be the top contender against Max Holloway. And Max pieced him up, of course, but the fact that Arnold Allen's only 29 and he's going up against Max Holloway shows that, for future's sake, this guy is a top contender, and he's 29 versus Max, who's a little bit older. So Arnold Allen will have a chance to get to the top again. But now we're competing against another 29-year-old Movsar, who he could also be a title challenger. And I have a hard time choosing who I think is going to win this fight, because I think both are just such great fighters. I would have to lean towards the Russian Movsar, because if they do go to the ground, I do think he will just have that overwhelming type of grappling, and I think Arnold will do well defending himself. But once again, just these Russians are seem to be built different for this sport. So I would lean Movsar. He's already the favorite at minus 170 versus Arnold Allen's plus 140. Um, I don't mind if you place like a bet on Arnold because he's got good value on him for his skill level. Um, but then, yeah, for Movsar, I just think he's going to win. But the price tag's a little bit too much for what I would want to spend on him, even though I think it's probably right at minus 170. Um, I just personally wouldn't want to do that unless I want to get cheeky with it by saying he's either going to submit him or win on decision. But if you're going to do that, you might as well just choose him on the money line at that point because it probably won't make a huge difference. So those are about the 3 fights on that card that I'd say are worth targeting, and that's also in January. Not also, but in 2 weeks from now versus the football that's in February. So I think I'm going to leave this stream at that with those 2 type of breakdowns, the NFL and then UFC 297. Yeah, it's going to be a good couple months riding into some sports. I'm excited about that. We're going to have a podcast here soon on the Waste Management Open, as that's here in Phoenix, Arizona. So I'll definitely be at that event and have some bets lined up for you guys on that event because that one I'm pretty excited about since it's here. But that's all I got for you today. As always, cheers, boys. Thanks for coming.